Okay, to give you a little bit of background on kind of what Numa is, and we spent a lot of time engineering this in New Zealand. So we want to be the kind of local guys. There's a lot of engineering required to make sure that the agents kind of work, that they're safely and securely authenticated into your systems, that you can monitor them, that you can control them, and so on. So that's the kind of operating system layer down there at the bottom. Then we've got the usual chat functionality, file management, a whole bunch of integrations that I'll show you as well. Then we are, I would say, somewhat sadly, but maybe not, contributing to the collapse of SaaS, because now within Numa, we used to be on HubSpot, we used to be on Jira, and now, as you'll see, we've kind of collapsed that into our own product, so we're drinking more of our own champagne. And then a whole bunch of agents that we've pre-built for small, medium businesses. So kind of taking some of the stuff that Ben was kind of showing as an example, and being able to have that pre-built and available for even less technical people. I know Ben's not very technical. I sit behind him in an office. But even less technical people like me that can kind of build anything. And then we are on the journey to also building our end-to-end applications. So businesses run on processes, and those processes require business rules as well as tasks and agents. And so our next generation product will be building some of those out. One of the really important things that we engineered right from the very start is security. So we've built Numa in a standalone cloud environment. So like maybe you still do, you used to have a server sat in the corner of your office or your factory. Now you've got one in the cloud, and I always point up because it's not actually the cloud, but you know what I mean. So now it's kind of private and secure and only for you, not shared with anybody else, which means security is a lot tighter. And we've also built on Amazon Web Services. They spend billions on security as well. We don't quite have that budget yet. And they've got a lot more to lose than we do, although Jeff's got plenty of money, more than me. And so, yeah, kind of having the best of class kind of technologies, and hopefully over time we will have the opportunity to do that in New Zealand with New Zealand infrastructure as well. We pre-build, we talk, as I said this morning, we talk to lots and lots of businesses in many different industries and parts of the country. And so we know what people want to do with AI typically. It's great when we get surprised with a new use case, like was it Sankey or Shanky diagram? But yeah, we kind of pre-build these agents. One of the big differences between us and other platforms is, we're in this industry, in this country, and we're building connections to the software that people currently use. So with all the best hope in the world, Anthropic or Microsoft or Google are not going to build an integration with kind of some small local technology companies, and that's what we're doing, and we partner really closely with them to make sure that we're all winning in this AI game rather than taking it offshore. Just to give you an example of the kind of apps that we're working towards, so similar to Ben, that kind of zero admin CRM, we live that in a slightly different way. We're kind of a lot of outbound calls. We now have a voice capability within the product where our sales team are making calls. The calls are recorded, but not just that, there's an agent to help them on their conversation, so nudging them to say, oh, you haven't quite qualified it correctly yet, or helping with objection handling or whatever. And then once that call is fully qualified, it will then go into the CRM. And then we have an agent that helps us prepare for the workshops. Agents are then processing the workshops and coming up with the right use cases for the trial. The trial is monitored by an agent to make sure they're doing the right thing. And then an agent also helps prepare the business case at the end of it. So when you begin to look at the end-to-end processes, this is what the near future is going to look like. And so when you think about your businesses, imagine what it'd be like if you didn't have to do any of the admin, any of the manual data entry into those systems. And I can tell you a lot of your teams will thank you for it. Okay, so now I'll show you the product. So this is Numa, the kind of chat interface. Lots and lots of different ways to make AI a better kind of experience. You have the option to pick the different knowledge bases and file stores. So again, this is the RAG stuff that you may have heard about today, where it kind of gets the context, but also means it removes the hallucinations. And you can turn web search on or off, so then if you have a task that you're doing that requires you to go out and find the latest information, Numa can do that. Or if you wanted to only work with your internal documentation, you can turn that off. And then we have the ability to create agents from a chat, and I'll show you that, and then also create memories, which are the ways that you personalize the experience. Then a whole bunch of different integrations, a whole bunch of different models available, and then some internal kind of developer stuff. And so just to give you an example, this was a conversation I was having with the guys up at the Phoenix yesterday. I'll just load this in. And so this is the kind of way that you can interact with AI now. Is kind of create some synthetic or mock up some data, so you don't need to start off with having your real data in there. Very, very short prompts there, instruction to say, all right, this is what I want you to be able to do. And one of the key little tips is ask it to ask you the questions on the journey, right? So ask it to validate, ask it to pre-qualify, ask it to do whatever. And so that's what I've done. And it's asked me a whole bunch of questions, and I've gone like this, and then it's produced me a dashboard, just like that. So some of you, again, I don't think there's anybody from Microsoft in here, apologies if there is. If you're spending money on Power BI and those big kind of dashboarding products, you kind of don't need to anymore, because you get to generate these dashboards in the way that you want. You get to edit them, you get to create them, you get to update them, whatever you like. You get to brand them, you can get to do whatever. And then because Serge mentioned it this morning, I went, oh, just give me a Sankey thing, a Sankey diagram, there you go. And then it just produced me a Sankey diagram to keep Serge happy. And so again, you go from nothing to some dashboards to a diagram, and then I could say, now put this into a PowerPoint slide for my board pack, and kind of off you go, right? So that's the kind of journey you can go on, and then creating an agent is as simple as create an agent for this. Create an agent for this process. And then you kind of just go on that journey. It'll ask me a couple of questions, and then by the end of, 15, 20 seconds, you'll then have an agent that will then be able to consistently go through this process, right? And that's as quick and as simple as it is. You don't need to code. All you need to know is, what do you want to be able to produce? What do you want to be able to share? Where do you want to pull the knowledge from? And then off you go. And then it goes, oh, okay, you've already given me enough information, so now I'm going to go through. It's decided that the Sankey diagram is quite nice. Because I asked it previously to go and get the colors from the Phoenix, it also has the branding. And so all I need to do now is go personal or public, and I'll just say, let's make it public, and say it's going to save me 60 minutes every time I use it. So again, coming back to that point around the return on investment, every time somebody builds an agent in Numa, you have to say how much time is it going to save you every time that you use it. So you get an accumulation of time saved, so very easy metrics. And there you go. Then it's built the agent for you, and it turns up in here, because I made it public, so it should just pop up in a second. There we go, down here, Football Club Financial Dashboard Builder. And then so that's it. Then you have an agent that you can interact with the next time, and you go, right, I can now produce a dashboard, I can now produce a Sankey diagram, whatever. So that's how simple now it is to create these agents that you can then use to operate your business. And we have an agent marketplace with hundreds of different agents we built for different things, including useful things like FAQ agents. This is one that comes up a lot. I always get asked the same questions. I get emails all the time. And so we create an agent that searches your emails for FAQs, turns them into a document, and then that FAQ agent can then answer the emails of the FAQs. Very simple, but quite useful and very easy to do once you've kind of connected Outlook or Gmail. I use agents to monitor my email and my calendar and my meetings to identify the tasks that I've been asked to do and the tasks that I've asked others to do that they haven't quite got around to yet. And then that generates a whole bunch of different tasks in this task board. And so you can create these boards to do whatever you like. You can pick the columns. You can do all the kind of stuff. And I basically asked Numa to create this board for me. And so AI understands enough about what is a Kanban board, what is task management, what is email, so on and so forth, and then it can build that out for you. So incredibly, incredibly powerful. Again, unfortunately for many of the SaaS companies, building this stuff now is just super, super simple, right? But it is incredibly powerful. We have our CRM in there, you have your supply database in there, you have special projects in there, so on and so forth. So you begin to build all of your kind of work processes connected intelligently with AI, and then it becomes possible to be proactive and kind of really unlock the potential. So we've got tons and tons of different integrations that we've built. We add a few every week into Microsoft, into Google, into some of the weird things that many of you may have never heard of, local companies or trade-specific integrations. And so we work with companies on that. One of the other things I did want to show is into the admin side. So one of the really important things when you get into this kind of world of AI and automation and agents is how do you control the things to make sure they don't go rogue and do stuff that you don't necessarily want them to do. And that may be, you may be fine, you've gone through the education, the training, but maybe a member of your staff missed that training or whatever, and they kind of get into it. How do you make sure that they're not going to do a whole bunch of stuff? You can do branding, there's single sign-on for security. You get to choose all the different things that you want the chat to have kind of default. So maybe you don't want them to be able to create agents, so you can turn that off. Maybe you don't want them to have integrations that the approval is automatic. So again, you get to kind of lock all of this stuff down. Maybe you don't want them to have agents at all. Maybe you only want them to build their own agents, or maybe you don't want them to be able to build their own agents. Maybe you've got different automations, but you don't want people to kind of run things on a daily basis. Maybe they're only allowed to do weekly. One of the things to know is when you start connecting into your systems, there's a ton of different things that every one of these connections can do. So if you think about what you can do with email, I would recommend don't send it so it's allowed to send emails. Allow it to draft emails to start with. And when you begin to trust the process, then allow it to send, right? So you have to have these granular levels of control to make sure you don't unintentionally allow the agent to do something. So making this super simple is what we're really focused on. And then, again, you can turn on or off anything within Numa. So again, you've got this, it's going to be a journey. You're going to be maturing over time. Different users, different people in the team are going to be maturing over time, and so we've got to make that as easy as possible. And then the final thing is credits, and there's a question obviously with Ben about tokens. If anybody can really simply explain tokens, then all the best. It's really hard to understand how AI models consume content, how they generate stuff. And so we have now got our own proprietary algorithm that understands the value of what you are doing. So we've got, again, SMBs across the country, tens of thousands of conversations have happened. We're able to analyze the intent behind them, because when you start a conversation with AI or an agent, you kind of say, I am trying to do this, and so you have that kind of intent. And then we've done our own, built our own AI model to identify, is this a low-value task or is this a super high-value task? And so across the organization, as the administrator, you get to know what are your team doing with AI, and is it actually high value, or is it high volume, low value stuff, which is fine, but then you also get to control how many credits do they have and so on and so forth. So you get full visibility and control over it, which is, of course, super, super important. And I think that is all I'm going to say. Thank you, Justin.